Dani, I'm not sure if you're aware, but we have a problem.
You and I?
Specifically the two of us.
Oh, yes, beef.
What are we beefing about?
He's seated right between
Darren.
us. I'm just going to tell you right now, the scouting report says we've got a highly caffeinated Darren Urban joining us on this edition of Cardinals Underground, brought to you by Pacific Office Automation. Go ahead.
I've had like 2 sips.
2 sips or two pots. Are you sure about that? You are. I mean, you are more overly caffeinated than Ron Wolfley on game day right now. You are regular season ready right now.
You want to know what it is, Paul? I took a vacation day for Thursday, and we already were going to have the long weekend, Friday, Monday. So this is basically my Thursday afternoon. So I'm excited.
Well, based on the early returns, you're peaking too early, Darren. You better pace yourself at this point. That's all I'm saying. So head on a swivel, Dani, because at any moment, I'm just telling you right now, we might catch a stray or two from Darren.
Based on what we heard from Darren before we started recording, it would not surprise me.
The acerbic and caustic Darren Urban on this edition of Cardinals Underground. We'll see if he lights the lamp. That remains to be seen.
First of all, I'm always acerbic and caustic.
Nobody's winning the offseason, though, Darren. Sorry, we're not giving you the Rex Ryan Award. For the first time ever, we might actually give the Rex Ryan Award to a player instead of an actual organization or team or GM. And that player might be Marvin Harrison Jr. at this point, gaining steam. Dani, thumbs up or thumbs down?
Thumbs up.
First of all,
if only those thumbs had muscles, then it would be more apropos.
Hey!
Yeah, that was kind of isn't the Rex Ryan Award, isn't that a little bit of a backhanded compliment?
A little bit.
And I think we needed a front-handed compliment for Marvin Harrison.
The acerbic and caustic Rex Ryan, once upon a time, declared the Bills the winner of the offseason, literally said it, proclaimed himself, and then they won 4 games, and he got canned. So ever since, we've awarded...
I feel good that Marvin is not going to get canned after this season.
It is a before and after, is it not? I mean,
it does seem that way, right?
Oh,
he has put on some muscle.
But see, here's how I'm looking at this, and I know there was some jokes about like he kept talking about naturally kind of happened, and how his confidence is going to go up. That's naturally going to happen. I do think there's a certain amount when we talk about that year 2 jump for all the players, right? Like, isn't some of it just going to happen, quote unquote, naturally? Now it's not naturally. There's a lot of work that goes into it, but essentially, you're talking about having these guys under NFL trainers for a whole year when they come in not really knowing what they're doing the previous year, with all due respect to Ohio State and whatever neo-pro work that they got going in a place like Ohio State. It's still going to be different. It reminds me a little bit of like, I've been around high school basketball for a number of years because of my kids, and it reminds me so much every year when the season starts, after watching the freshman team the whole year, and then I see them the next year, and like 90% of the kids are still the same kids, but I recognize none of them because the maturation between freshman and sophomore year, I think, is more than almost any other year for me, what I've watched these high school kids. And it's a little bit of that. I mean, obviously, these guys are adults that come in, but Marvin Harrison's still only 22 years old. I'm like, there's still filling out that is happening, that maybe that's just what we're catching a little bit of.
Or maybe it's the fact he's teammates with Yelda Froholt, Mr. Protein himself. So he just went over to Yelda Froholt, and then, boom, there you go.
There is a natural maturation at such a young age. And I think, too, is part of what Harrison was saying about his play on the field and where he hopes to make a jump from year 1 to year 2, which is not just focusing on what his specific role is, but having a broader approach. So his route, his role on a given play, what progression is that for his quarterback? What is the defense showing him? What is he expecting the defense to do to defend him? Whereas year 1, understandably so, it was pretty much, this is what I need to do, that's what I'm going to focus on. Now that he has that foundation, it's opening up mentally, what can he do to maybe not manipulate, right? But beat a defender a little better, be a little trickier to defend. And when you already have that foundation that has been set from year 1, it also allows him to focus on other things. In this case, putting on some more muscle and living in the weight room this offseason.
I thought the point he made about the understanding the bigger picture within the plays was really important from the standpoint of there's been a lot of conversation of Marvin had a good rookie year. Why didn't he have a great rookie year? And was it on Marvin, or was it on Drew Petzing, what he was doing with him? And was it on Kyler Murray? Whatever. And it's kind of a moot point to me.
But you know what? The answer to your question is really all the above.
Of course, there's always things, and there's a learning curve for everything. We're talking about Marvin's learning curve. There was still going to be a learning curve for Kyler Murray, and I don't care how much time you get in the offseason throwing on air. There's still a learning curve of throwing to Marvin Harrison in real games. There's still a learning curve of Drew Petzing trying to figure out what is going to be best for Marvin Harrison overall. I mean, I think, again, it all plays into that. And also, secondarily, when we talk about this muscle, and this is, of course, you have to play within perspective of wide receiver versus defensive line. But who had more gains this offseason, Darius Robinson or Marvin Harrison?
Oh, boy.
We
don't have any specific weight numbers, so it's all subjective at this point.
Darius Robinson told me his weight's the same.
That's
his body has changed, though.
Yes. Are you? I mean, come on, really on that one? Really?
You're a hater. That's what he told me.
Look, there's a lot of things. Well, most everything I'm unqualified to speak on from an expert perspective. But here's my take on muscle gain. Here we go. It was I was in my early 20s. It was my second job. It was Kalamazoo, Michigan. K-Zoo, as the locals call it, and there's really only two ways to get through a K-Zoo winter. One, you go to the bar, or number two, you go to the gym. And so I did the latter, and it was a powerhouse gym, and it was full of muscleheads in there. And they stopped me about 3 weeks in, and they said, Calvisi, 80% of lifting is eating. You're going nowhere. What are you doing? What are you eating? And so if he did change his diet, it is plausible, it is feasible, it is truly possible that he had all these gains. The better news is now when they come up press man, he's much more equipped, right? So when Derek Stingley Jr. comes up and it's Cardinals at Houston, or I don't know, Devin Witherspoon of Seattle twice a year, 2-time All-Pro, 2 times, 2 years in the league. Oh, you're going to Denver for a joint practice, by the way, and you're matched up against the NFL Defensive Player of the Year, Patrick Surtain II. All of a sudden, I would guess he's that much more equipped from year 1 to year 2 to get off the press, and within those first 5 yards, get off me, right?
From what we saw year 1 with those contested catches, Harrison has the ability to time it well with Kyler Murray, has the ability to track the ball, to have that catch radius to bring it in. Now he adds the muscle to be tougher to get that ball from or to break it up. And that is going to be huge when you're having to make a transition from year 1 to year 2 and consistently be a number 1 receiver. My follow-up question to you, Paul, is after that person at the gym said that to you, did you go to the gym less and go to the bar more?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I see. Well, it meant I had to go to the grocery store more, and I loathe the grocery store. So it really was a conundrum. I probably just kept doing what I've always done, and that is go to the gym and get no gains.
The thing about, exercising and changing your body, whether it is gaining muscle or people trying to lose weight, it's all 80% eating. And that's the worst part.
Right. Yes. It's, as my close buddies, my lifelong buddies will say, you go to the gym? That's their way of rubbing it in that I get no
What, do you got a bunch of muscle heads for buddies?
Return on investment.
So is it bad that I've just been craving a milkshake today? You're saying I should not get a milkshake after work.
But
no, I think you should.
Don't forget the 4 C's. The 4 C's when it comes to Marvin Harrison Jr. And if you've forgotten those.
Copper is not one of them.
It's
carrot.
It's contested. Hello. It's also chemistry. Yeah. So when we're citing all the factors that could play into him having a breakout year 2, let's not forget what Kyler said at the end of last season. This was going into week 17. I went and found the quote, Kyler, on his connection with Marvin. Quote, we have to get better. It's not where he wants it to be. It's not where I want it to be. It's not where this team needs it to be. I haven't lost any confidence. Oh, which, by the way, is our 4C, confidence. To go along with consistency was the other one.
You can only do so much in the offseason at this point, which is routes on air. There's no defender in Kyler Murray's face. There's no defender pressing up against Marvin Harrison Jr. What Harrison did say in his press conference this week, though, is you can, in this time, get the timing of the route so precise that you could do it with your eyes closed.
I do like the confidence part, which translates over to Drew Terrell's thing at the end of last season.
Yes.
You got to go out on the field and tell and let everybody know that you're
bleeping
MFing Marvin Harrison. Caustic, abrasive, Darren Urban, acerbic.
I tried to clean it up. I tried, and Darren
beat
was
me for God's
was
sake.
compelled to go there as he takes another sip. Somebody might want to take Darren's car keys at this point, the way this thing is tracking. Here's the thing. Here's my question. This is a genuine question, and I wanted to ask Marvin Harrison Jr. this question, and I chickened out. That's the fifth C, chicken.
Oh, it's going to be a UFO question.
How do you practice contested catches?
Oh.
You don't.
Nope.
I mean, remember back in the day how terrified all the DBs were of even touching Larry Fitzgerald? Mm-hmm. Oh, thou shalt not touch the franchise.
To begin with,
you think a corner's going to come in and start, Cardinals corner trying to make the team, all of a sudden is going to mess with the franchise?
First of all, and this goes back big picture, again, I mean, right now they're in phase 2 stuff, which offense and defense can't even be on the same field when they're on the field. When they get to OTAs, phase 3, they can be, and minicamp, they can be 11 on 11, but the rules say, forget worrying about injuries, the rules say there's to be no contact between offensive and defense, and you're certainly not supposed to jump in the air and have any contact.
And doesn't that go for the first 5 days of training camp now?
Yes.
So thou shalt not touch thy teammate during a practice. So it's really difficult. I mean, how is he supposed to get better at contested catches if that's one of the big keys to this season? Does Jonathan Gannon, Monty Ossenfort, do they have a meeting in the draft room and say, okay, organizational decision, we're going to let Max Melton and Sean Murphy-Bunting and Will Johnson start shoving and chucking and messing with Marvin Harrison Jr. during Cardinals camp to get him more regular season ready?
Here's a story. I think we're far enough removed that I can tell it.
Uh-oh.
It's
the caffeine talking right now.
I happen to be, we're probably
the 6C.
We're probably a decade out.
Light the lamp.
There was an off-season thing going on.
I need a drink.
And there were no media out there, but I happened to be out there taking pictures. And Patrick Peterson was on the team, and there was a long pass, a bomb thrown, and Patrick he was going against some receiver that never made the team, and the ball was more or less overthrown, but Patrick basically ran the route. So as the ball is coming down, it looked like Patrick was the receiver because he was behind the wide receiver. And the wide receiver was so desperate to try and break it up that he lunged at the very end, and as the ball came in, he essentially tackled Patrick.
Uh-oh. Ruh-roh.
I have never heard, this was before music was being played out there, so it was already, I've never heard a more quiet thing with 90 guys and coaches out there on the field. And it was just, and then all of a sudden, an assistant coach, it wasn't even the head coach, the assistant coach started screaming at the receiver. And I'm like, now Patrick was fine, everything was okay, but it goes back to your point, like you be very careful out there.
So when you're trying to assess Marvin Harrison Jr. and what's coming this year, because it's starting to generate a lot of buzz. Even the national media is starting to get in on it. The fantasy football people are starting. It is amazing the depth to which the fantasy football media will drill deep into the analytics. For example, they had some stat, this is a fantasy football thing on ESPN, that he was only in motion last year 7 or 8 times, less than 10 times. You can count how many times that Marvin Harrison Jr. went in motion on 2 hands. So does that change? Because there was a comment he made going into Week 18 last year about how he had run some different routes in Week 17 at the Rams, and he had a pretty good game against the Rams. So, all right, do they use him differently? Is he different body type? He is. You know, how much more equipped is he mentally after grown men like Jalen Ramsey would come up and chuck him and talk trash to him the entire game, even though he got the best of him in the second half at Miami? But, I'm guessing. And then when he admitted to Kyler Murray after the end of the season, Week 1 was awful fast. That was moving at a really quick rate. And then this is my own theory, and that is, Dani, we've talked about this, is today's defensive coordinator disguises coverage at such an elite level that it really makes receivers think. And didn't Marvin make a comment about that he's much more equipped to know, okay, he's running the route, but how should I sort of nuance the route based on the coverage I'm seeing? And what you see pre-snap is vastly different most of the time than what you see post-snap.
That's the natural progression of year 1 to year 2 for any player in any position, but really for a receiver, for what Harrison was saying of, it's not just him now. It is all the moving pieces. It is, what is this defense disguising? What can I do differently to make sure that I have a better chance at winning this one-on-one matchup. It was interesting hearing the difference of Harrison saying, week one, the game felt really fast. And then when he was talking about how weird it was being inside State Farm Stadium when the wildcard game was moved between the Rams and the Vikings, and how weird it was being in his stadium, not being the one playing a game, but from the suites where he was watching the game, how slow it felt. When you're watching, it felt so different than when you're the one down there on the field. There's going to be improvement because that is what happens year one to year two. And then you pair in the natural ability, you pair in the work ethic, you pair in the consistency and the chemistry that Harrison's been working on with his teammates this offseason. You can't argue that a jump is not expected in year two.
Last thing I'll say in this to me maybe was the biggest money comment from him, is when he said, there is an opportunity for me to flip the switch to on a little bit more this year.
He was talking about the MFing Marvin Harrison there. Yeah.
The mentality. Yes, your question about what Drew Terrell said.
Yeah.
And to me, he doesn't have a wide receiver one, like Lair did when Anquan was there, at the very beginning. Even Frank Sanders said, I had Rob Moore back in the day.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that. But he does have Trey McBride.
Yeah.
And nobody quite flips the switch like Trey McBride on game day. He is a totally different dude on game day. And his yards after the catch, obviously some of the best in the league. So if there's someone that Marvin Harrison can emulate this year, I think it's his tight end.
And I think it's interesting that you bring that up because, again, did we see, and I know there was a lot going on at the time, but I didn't notice that switch for Trey McBride when he was a rookie.
True.
You need that first year to be comfortable.
Yep.
It's just like anything else.
Good point.
Well, thank you. I just feel like you get to that second year, that confidence, and I know Marv said it was natural. Like, I do think it's going to be easier to flip a switch. Now, again, you don't all of a sudden become a different person. Your personality is what it is. But when you gain that confidence and you start thinking, I am.
McBride talked about that confidence jump as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, again, I've been saying this all offseason. People want to know, hey, are they going to sign another receiver? What are they going to do at receiver? I still think the biggest, most important thing that they have going at receiver is Marvin picking that jump. And there is nothing that has made me think that jump isn't coming.
All right, schedule release. We haven't talked about it here on Cardinals Underground. We've provided plenty of other content around the schedule, but likes, dislikes, concerns, where is there trepidation? Where are you bullish? What stands out?
The schedule itself or the schedule? Oh, I thought you were talking about the schedule release.
We're not going to step on you, Dani. We know we have some things coming, don't we?
Oh, I was just talking. I don't know if we're talking about the Cardinals schedule
release. No, we are
release.
talking about the Cardinals schedule.
Okay, we're clearly confused, but I'm on the same page as you now. The schedule itself.
There is beef between Paul and Dani. I can just
the beef was with Paul and I against you.
Is that what it was?
Yes.
Well, we were just on edge a little bit. We were wondering, what's coming. So, okay. All right.
Anyway, back to the schedule.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The first half is as manageable as you could expect it to be this early in the offseason. You open the season on the road in New Orleans against a team with a first-year head coach, a team that has questions at quarterback after Derek Carr retired 2 weeks ago. Then you have your home opener the following week in Carolina. That's back-to-back weeks against teams who had 5 wins last season. It gets interesting the first of 2 primetime games, that Thursday night game against Seattle, and then you play the 49ers right after. And so having back-to-back divisional games, you're obviously going to have to be on your A game. The first half of the season, the Cardinals face one team in their first 12 games that made the playoffs last year.
Wow.
And that's Green Bay. And then it's a switch of the flip of the switch. There we go. The second half of the season after the bye week. Because then you're facing...
Somebody say switch. Here we go.
You face the Rams for the first time in week 14. And of their final 6 games, 4 of those are on the road.
Yeah, I don't like that. I'm turning off the light.
4 of those are against teams who made the playoffs last year. And you're facing 2 quarterbacks who have dominated the month of December. Matthew Stafford as a Ram is 13-1. And Joe Burrow with the Bengals is 10-3, I believe, off the top of my head. So it's going to be a tough back half of the schedule for a Cardinals team that last year was 2-7 after the bye week, 2-7 on the road after the bye week. This is an opportunity to change the narrative and not only start the season fast, but finish it fast and strong as well.
Yeah, if you make the postseason, you're going to be playoff ready based on your last 2 games. If you make the postseason, Cincinnati on the road, Rams on the road, the way they finished the last 2 years against those quarterbacks, as you pointed out, I mean, you will be playoff ready. Let's say the Cardinals make the playoffs at, 9-8, 10-7. Let's just say they get in. I mean, look out. I mean, just you will feel like you're playoff ready based on those two assignments at the very end of the year, presuming you get their best.
I was going to say, and even if you get their best, I mean, if you go 10-7, but you go into those games 10-5 and you lose them both and you don't play well, I don't think it's. I think there's nuance in terms of. I think it helps you're playing those teams if there's something on the line. It's interesting to me the back half of the schedule, given how the back half of schedules have gone for this franchise, and I think that's going to be crucial. And what it really does to me is no matter, well, obviously if they start poorly, that's a whole different thing. But assuming they can start well against the schedule, it's not going to. There's still going to be people waiting to see what the back half looks like.
True.
No matter how well they play in the front half.
You're right.
Because of history.
Yep, you're right. I mean, it won't be until the holidays till people actually, okay, now we can start rendering a conclusion, a decision, some sort of analysis on the Cardinals when you see them against the by the way, it's never too early to get ready for week one and scout your upcoming opponent, the New Orleans Saints. Just thought I'd throw out there 4 different quarterbacks that are going to get reps for new head coach Kellen Moore.
Well,
So,
if we're talking early, I mean, let's go a little earlier than that, and it's come out that the Cardinals are going to have a joint practice again this year. They have one road game in the preseason, that's in Denver, so they're going to have one joint practice session with the Broncos a couple days before that game. So they will once again be able to practice against another team the 4th straight year they're doing that.
I should clarify, it was 2-5. I went and looked, not 2-7, 2-5 after the bye on the road. On that note, though, with preseason, what's interesting is the Chiefs are the first preseason opponent for the Cardinals, and head coach Andy Reid is known for playing his starters in the
That's
preseason.
True. We've seen that.
The Cardinals are not. Does that change week one? Does that change when you have so many new faces, mostly on the defense, of wanting to get them some looks? Maybe they play a few more snaps than they would otherwise, get some looks against some really good starters in the league.
I mean, last year Marvin Harrison Jr. got 3 snaps. Got the one series.
And that was mostly to just go through the motions of a game day and getting dressed and the timing.
Darius Robinson, I think, got 12 snaps. Might have been 10.
Well, and then after he had a good game, that was the last we saw of him.
That was it. Yep. So
it really was the last we saw of him.
Okay.
And
Too soon.
So now, Walter Nolan III, is he going to get more snaps based on that because of last year? Does Marvin Harrison Jr. actually get snaps in year 2 much more than he did as a rookie because he wants to get some experience, maybe some contested catches and targets?
And it spreads out. Like, if we're under the assumption that rookie linebacker Cody Simon ends up becoming a starter and ends up having the green dot on his helmet and calling the defense, do you want him out there next to a Mack Wilson Sr. by a Budda Baker or Jalen Thompson to work with the chemistry and the communication and the being able to tell the defense what the game plan is and make sure everybody's in their spot? It spreads out beyond just an individual player or rookie in this situation.
It's always interesting to me. JG makes it clear a lot of the time that they look over a lot of different stuff all the time from year to year to see if they change. Could the preseason cadence of how they play guys, could that change or be tweaked at all? I don't know. It's a good question.
Remember to ask JG that question, right? Okay, preseason.
I'm sure he's going to be.
He'll give you the plan.
I think there's a chance he's going to talk next week. You're going to ask him that question?
I'm sure he'll give us
preseason
straight answer.
And then he did say they were going to assess the offseason, or at least assess what happened after the bye, to your point, Dani, the win-loss record, and could they change anything in that regard. Not sure how much he's going to be willing to share of the conclusions they came to. But as I think about that, what do you think? Is it time to get cultured?
I think it is.
All right, Dani, take it away. Dani, we'll segue to you.
Getting cultured with Dani. It is not just directed at Paul.
Am I the default uncultured Philistine around here?
Yes.
You got me very excited now.
I am on social media and consume more pop culture than both of you combined.
I think I'm being unfairly profiled, but go ahead.
Let's go. There was no other topic for me to start getting cultured with this week than the fact that reportedly Bill Belichick is engaged to his girlfriend, Jordan Hudson. Yes, his girlfriend, the 49-year age difference,
Mazel tov.
has not been confirmed. It's just been reported as of Tuesday.
Okay.
He's off the market.
I saw a tweet today that said, I want to go back to the time where all I knew about Bill Belichick was that he liked lacrosse.
Okay. So, who leaked the news? Were the people who were in the will, the Belichick family will, did they leak the news? That's what I want to know.
I believe that somebody who covers the Patriots and likely had a connection with Belichick. And then I also saw online that Jordan Hudson herself reportedly told someone in her inner circle that they were engaged. She might want to reassess who is in her inner circle if that is true.
Yeah. If you're a member of his direct family and you were previously in the will, be afraid.
You know what?
Be very afraid.
Maybe the fact that she was getting so much flack for not being an employee is like, okay, we'll just make you my wife and then nobody can say anything.
That's right.
Just kidding. I'm sure this is all about love and no other ulterior motives. Next on Getting Cultured, schedule release videos. It feels like it's been forever because it was the end of last week and there was just so much to consume. I do want to talk about some of my favorites though, and I'm not sure that you guys have gone through as many of the videos that I did.
18 bars, that was my favorite.
By the Cardinals, that was very nicely done. I'm not including that because we've had so many conversations.
We have.
That we're going to look at other
Props
teams.
to Mac Wilson.
And whenever we're talking about 18 bars, yes, the light comes on. Yes.
Indianapolis Colts. They did Minecraft. Although it was deleted, reportedly because of issues with Microsoft, the partner. So that I very much believe could be real. If you don't have approval from a partner, that could be problematic. Although it's so interesting, the Colts typically are one of the more friendly teams on social media, and they just went 180 and some of the jabs they took of their opponents. So week 1, they played the Dolphins, and they had Tyreek Hill as a Dolphin getting arrested by the Coast Guard. Now, they did apologize, and Tyreek Hill said that he was totally cool with it. It was fun. It was just an interesting take by the Colts. That's not usually their voice. They took a risk.
So we all know how much work goes into these schedule release projects.
Oh, yes.
And so if you have to delete it within hours of it being released, is that akin to like working on your thesis and then the computer eats it? It gets just gets deleted and you have nothing to show for all that work?
They had a few
Ouch.
other videos on other platforms. The Chargers also did Minecraft, and their attention to detail every year is so spectacular. And I'm going to call out one team in particular that the Chargers play, the Cowboys. And inside AT&T Stadium, I don't know if you guys picked up on all the little details. The first thing that happened...
I didn't, but then I saw people pointing them out.
They had a piece of the roof falling.
That's good. All
On
right.
the Jumbotron, they had the Mavs fan that was kicked out of a game months ago because during karaoke, when he came on the Jumbotron, he started mouthing "Fire Nico." That was the fan on the Jumbotron, and on the other side, it said "Defense wins championships." And lastly, it ended with DeMarcus Lawrence, who's now in Seattle, and Micah Parsons going back and forth with their Twitter beef about Tank wanting to go win. He wasn't going to win in Dallas. Attention to detail by the Chargers is always top notch on schedule release videos.
I mean, yeah, if you can get buy-in from the powers that be, the trolling is really nice.
Did it hold your attention though? I was 3.5, 4 minutes in. I bailed.
That's fair. A lot of them get pretty long.
Yeah.
And I will say, with the Chargers, I thought they did excellent with like those little Easter egg things. But the Minecraft thing doesn't hold me in. Like,
that's fair.
The anime stuff like moved at the speed of light, so it was like
it's slow motion.
Yeah.
Okay, Kansas City Chiefs. You guys know I love some Game Show Network. They had their version of Cash Cab with Ben Bailey from the original Cash Cab driving their van, and the questions were all Chiefs based.
I'm playing along. That's a double ding, Dani. Here we go.
I have explained it to you though, Paul. Before I have explained it to you, so I did appreciate that. The Tennessee Titans. It was so original. I don't know how they thought of it. Schedule Rizzy. It was a playoff, a popular medication commercial that plays over and over.
Sure.
And as they were showing the opponents, different side effects were being mentioned based on the opponent.
That's quality.
Clever. And then just quickly, a few more. The Chicago Bears, based on New Girl, the sitcom. If you don't watch it, it probably wasn't very funny. I did watch that show, so I thought it was clever. Their copy and their captions was really clever if you're a fan of the show. The Bills, AI.
I did like the Bills one.
Allen Iverson.
It's on my list. I got to go find that one. That got good
that's
reviews.
fine. I mean, Josh Allen's always involved,
and it's only
he's
like
so
90
great.
seconds, so it's
Yeah.
very
Yes.
digestible.
The Minnesota Vikings, I did confirm the tattoos that the fans got were real.
Oh, boy.
Real tattoos by diehard Vikings fans for the opponents they were playing, which is impressive. New York Giants, also a TV show. If you didn't watch Love Island, you probably didn't think it was funny. If you did watch Love Island, very funny, very
Obviously,
well
these
executed.
schedule videos were made for Dani.
The
guess
Jets
so.
was impressive. It was the endless scroll where you zoom into a different
Oh, I
part.
did- that
and
was pretty
I
cool.
don't. You don't get the schedule until
Yeah.
a couple hours before. So how they were able to put that in order and then film somebody with their fingers zooming in, very impressive. And last but not least, because we've talked about him on Getting Culture before, the Jags had Ashton Hall and his routine that starts at 3:30 in the morning,
yeah.
and he's dunking his face in the ice bucket. So all in all, pretty good year for schedule release videos. A lot of cultural Easter eggs thrown in there.
I did need to ask you, Dani. You mentioned that the Colts are normally friendly. What about Blue in particular?
Not very friendly.
Okay.
I would have been
Alma wanted to make
willing.
sure-
I would have been willing to squash the beef over like a stein of beer if we had been playing them in Germany. But now that we're not,
Oh.
I don't know how I'm going to approach
Yeah.
seeing him in Indianapolis. If I'm going to be friendly, if I'm going to try to get back at him, it is still options are still on the table.
Who's got bigger beef? You with Blue or Matthew with the Dolphin mascot?
I don't know. That's a good question. Well, you both have been culture now, so you're welcome.
All right, very well done. I do have beef with Atlanta, though. 5
The city of Atlanta.
primetime games for the Falcons. They had the same record as the Cardinals. They don't have a household name at quarterback. How many fans can name more than 2 players off the Falcons?
Who are their 5
Tops.
primetime games against? They're not in a very good
They're
division.
Not playing, not our game.
So I don't, I mean, I always put the Seahawks at the top of the list, teams you want to jack stomp. Atlanta is sort of a low-key one here. I got them marked down here for that home game, December 21st, right before the holidays. So, boom.
Merry Christmas to
Yeah,
us.
exactly. Speaking of opponents, what do you guys make the 49ers just giving out record contract extensions one after another? If it's not Brock Purdy, it's Fred Warner, because apparently Fred Warner had fallen behind average annual value of Roquan Smith, so they redid his deal, tore it up with 2 or 3 years to go, and they put him $1 million ahead per year of Roquan Smith, and then Brock Purdy, 5 years, $265 million. George Kittle now slightly ahead of Trey McBride, highest paid tight end in the league. I mean, Darren, you're over there on some of those, financial sites or Spot Track and all that kind of stuff, over the cap. How viable is this? How long before the 49ers are the New Orleans Saints and they're $70+ million over the cap? Please tell me soon.
I mean, it's going to depend on who else that they want to bring in, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult roster wise, and they better hit on draft picks. But that's every team. The Purdy contract isn't over the top. It's probably par for the course, and it's not horrific. And the reality is at this point that cap's going to keep going up too. I mean, Purdy is going to be eventually Kyler Murray. I mean, everybody was like, oh my God, you're giving Kyler Murray all that at $46 million average. And he's what, 13th on the list now, 15th on the list? Like this is what happens. I understand the people that were saying, do you buy into Brock Purdy? But to me, it was either all or nothing. You're either keeping Brock Purdy at a contract like this, or you're moving on from him. If you're going to keep him, this is what he was going to get paid. And with the 49ers and the way they operate, he's shown that he can do the job with Kyle Shanahan. And B, again, what do they do if they move on from him? Like this idea where you just throw it away. I get it. There's an argument to be made, like unless you have a Joe Burrow or a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson, you get rid of your guy after he gets off his rookie contract and you move on. Okay.
Yeah.
But then
what? Yep.
But then you're bottoming out again.
Yeah. Not to mention that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have their jobs right now because of Brock Purdy, because he saved both of them from the disaster that was the Trey Lance deal.
Now, you're not paying a guy because of that.
There's gratitude in there. But
you really think that?
It could have been more contentious than it was. I mean, for them to automatically exceed $50 million a year easily for, I mean,
well,
you can definitely make an argument he doesn't belong quite in that class. And
Tua is making 50 more.
And look how that's working out. I mean,
well, again, you're not wrong, but it's either that or not. Like, could it have been more contentious? The only way you cannot go to Brock Purdy and say, we want to give you $40 million a year. We don't think you're that good. You can't do it. You cannot do it. It's either all in or not in. I don't even think you're never going to see the light of day. And if you do that, you're going to piss him off. Why would you want to do that?
Well, not to mention they haven't paid him any money the last 4 years.
True, yeah, there were seasons he made less than $1 million a year, and he had that roommate until recently, right? Which, look, the long-term answer for the 49ers is you better hope they draft well. And if you look at their last few draft classes, it hasn't exactly been bountiful. It's not the, them finding Fred Warner in the third round was like 4 years ago. And,
look what happened to Seattle.
Some of those guys. Yeah,
Seattle was in a great place because they got Russell Wilson at a cheap contract early. And when they paid him, they were still in a place where they had those couple of great draft classes, especially the Richard Sherman one. But eventually they had bad draft classes, and it broke them, essentially.
Here's what's crazy, is, to me at least, and you guys agree or disagree, and I know you will. Right now, Vegas has the 49ers as the slight betting favorite to win the NFC West.
Are you surprised?
A little bit. I mean, I would think it would be the Rams, just based on the way the Rams finished last year and the run they gave the Eagles in Philly in the snow.
But you could make, and again, the 49ers this year are way different than the 49ers were last year, but you could make the argument that the only reason the 49ers finished where they were was because of injuries. And you're assuming those injuries aren't going to crop up.
But look at some of the losses they've suffered as well. Look at the state of the offensive line beyond Trent Williams. I guess I'm looking at them a little differently. Like even the over-under on wins, Niners at 10.5, Rams at 9.5, Seattle 7.5. But then again, the analytics say the Niners are going to play the easiest schedule not only in the league this year, but like the easiest going into a season based on the win-loss records from the year before since 2015. They don't even play a playoff team in the last 10 games.
8 games.
It's crazy how easy their schedule is, at least as it stands now.
Well, like if we're talking about the Cardinals being a potential playoff team, I mean, that's somebody they're going to be playing down this. Now, again, they're not going to be the playoff team this year, but, I'm guessing the 49ers would much rather play last year's Cardinals than this year's Cardinals. And last year's 49ers got swept by last year's Cardinals.
Speaking of quarterback, Kyler Murray, the softball game. Did I hear nobody went yard? Really? Even the former first-round pick? Nobody cleared the fences of the softball game?
The ones there was one, and I admitted I left a couple innings early, but the last time Kyler was up, he was definitely trying to go yard. And when he first hit it, I thought for sure it was going to clear, and it ended up being like 2 feet short.
Okay.
And fortunately, whoever the team that was in the field, they actually had a guy in left field that could play. Because not all of them could. There's some unbelievable football players that were in that game that cannot play softball.
Try and track a fly ball. Not that easy.
But I really enjoyed it because our social director, Emma Kramer, was shooting it from – we were standing in left field. So we're watching. We're right behind the fence. And she's got it on video. And as soon as he hit it, you can hear her go, oh, my God, like it was going to come and get us. And then it just fell short. And I'm like, you got to post that. That's good stuff. No, I don't think he did. But it was, you could tell that Kyler Murray had played baseball. He made a couple plays at short where I'm like, okay, that wasn't bad.
Yeah, you can tell right away. Trey McBride, right, home run champ in high school. So those are my two ringers that I forecasted would show pretty well. But
they play softball, but how many of them can play flag football?
Good question. Good segue. Budda Baker at the Pro Bowl. He's done that. By the way, did Budda say to the media he would be interested in the 2028 Olympics, or did he sort of defer on that?
He kind of deferred, but the reality is I'm thinking they're going to be going with somebody younger at that point. I mean, we are talking about 3 years from now.
I'm just curious if he had interest in it. Because, I mean, to a lot of athletes, it does resonate playing for your country.
Yes. Justin Jefferson said that when the announcement happened is basically like it's a dream come true for him. Yeah. So he is somebody who obviously wants to do it.
I mean, look at like Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. this last summer, for example. I mean, it was very meaningful to them.
And that's an organization. I mean, the sport of basketball has a rich history of playing for this country in the Olympics. And this is really the first time that NFL players, football players, could have that opportunity. It was approved by NFL league owners on Tuesday that NFL players can play flag football in the LA Summer Olympics. I'm just so intrigued as we get closer, the logistics of all of that. Beyond just tryouts and picking a team and how many players, or if there's going to be limits of how many players per NFL team, or if it's a complete free-for-all, right? Like, what players are really good on the football field, and it might not translate to flag football. But the contracts is so interesting. I mean, Brock Purdy just got a no-trade clause in his contract. Are we going to start seeing contracts that are going to have some sort of clause around flag football?
First of all, I think they already do. And the step that we're talking about right now, which happened before we got on the air today, was that the owners okayed that this could happen. It is not a done deal. There are still hurdles that have to be hurdled with the NFLPA, with insurance, all these things. This is not a done deal to the point where it's like, okay, now we can just start naming guys that could go start doing this, because there are things that have to do with that. You know, you have to, I mean, right now, if you are an NFL player and you're working out at your house to get ready for the NFL season, and you're doing all these same things that you would do, but you can't do it at the facility because the rules say no, and you hurt yourself, technically, the team doesn't have to pay you. Even if you're training for your team because you did it away from the facility. That's this times 10 if you're talking about playing in the Olympics. But again, these are risks that you might have to take. I was just talking to my wife the other day. The Panthers, the Florida Panthers, have made it into the Final Four of the NHL playoffs.
You know who else has?
Yeah, I know. Whatever. I was rooting for Winnipeg. Anyways, I noticed that Matthew Tkachuk was back on the ice for the Panthers. He had missed most of the second half of the season. I don't know exactly when he came back, because he got hurt in that
USA,
that tournament, that USA
Canada.
playing for USA in that tournament.
Right.
He got hurt really bad and missed significant time. And that Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, like you said, all those guys playing the Olympics, that's the risk you are, and there is a risk that you would do that. So it'll be interesting to see not only what players might want to do it, but also how many might want to do it and then are like, maybe this isn't worth my money. Or even college players that are now getting paid. They might not want to do it either.
Look, it's how they're going to grow the game internationally. Because you put in the Olympics, other countries obviously can field a team.
Yes.
It's just one component in growing the game internationally.
And again, it's something that both genders can play.
Yep.
And so you add an Olympic sport where both genders can play it. Look, we all know where flag football is going. Dani and Paul, you guys were a big part of what the Cardinals tried to do here last year with the first girls flag football telecast. But it's a huge deal for the NFL. It's a huge deal for the Cardinals. And this is just another step there. And just what it looks like, we'll find out.
So Yelda Froholt against Darius Robinson, flag football, Olympics?
All right, you know what? Just that mention right there, I believe that would qualify as winning behavior.
Yes.
Yeah, that's our segue.
I see you on the show!
Can you display winning behavior? You have to consistently display winning behavior.
That's winning behavior.
You got to define what winning behavior is and hold people to that standard.
Yes.
I'm going to start with the Indiana Pacers. They're taking care of one of their fans who was at Madison Square Garden wearing the Tyrese Halliburton jersey, and he's trying to leave, and he's walking through New York, and he got pelted with garbage. And he got harassed and really accosted by a bunch of New Yorkers and the Knicks fans. So then Pat McAfee found him because the video went viral, and they brought him on the show. And then Tyrese Halliburton showed up on the show, and on behalf of the Indiana Pacers, boom, they're bringing him out to a game, giving him some really good seats and paying for the whole travel package.
If his dad can't be there cheering him on, get a big-time Pacers fan. No, I love that. I love that is true winning behavior of Halliburton and bringing that fan. I mean, who does that? Why would you throw I mean, I know it's New York, right? But like, who does that?
All right, I'm gonna just. You're right. It was horrible that you would do that. My first thought was, you're around Madison Square Garden. and you're wearing a Pacers jersey.
I know.
I'm like,
I know.
I'm like,
Yeah. Back in the
It's
day.
a good thing everyone records everything these days.
Back in the day, I went to a Raiders game in Oakland, and there was a guy wearing a John Elway jersey.
yeah.
Didn't go well for him.
My best friend growing up is a huge Broncos fan, and he has lived most of his life in the Bay Area. And he so desperately wanted to go to all the Broncos games in Oakland, and his wife said, absolutely not. He was like his wife absolutely banned him from going to Broncos games. He could go to a Broncos game if they played the 49ers, but he was not allowed to go to a Raiders game.
By the way, speaking of Indianapolis, show of hands, who's going to get up at 8 a.m. on Sunday morning and watch the Indy 500? Really?
Car guy.
Really? Come on.
Car guy.
I'm turning off the light on your behalf. That's terrible. You know what they call it in Indy this Sunday? You know what it's going to be? It's going to be Racers and Pacers. It's a doubleheader
There you go.
in the city. Okay, who's next? Who's going to take the baton from here? Winning behavior.
I got to mention, I got a kick out of this when, speaking of, well, I guess it's not Oakland anymore. Former Oakland A's catcher, now Sacramento. Are they in Sacramento right now?
I don't want to talk about it.
Going to be in Vegas?
Don't want to talk about it.
Johnny Perita. They were getting smoked by the Dodgers 19-2 recently, and Shohei had hit 2 home runs in this game, and it was his bobblehead night. And so the A's bring Johnny Perita, who's a catcher, out to pitch the last inning. And he got to face Shohei, and he struck him out. And it is the best. He strikes him out and then makes sure he gets the ball and then rolls it so he can keep it. And apparently
I did not see that.
He said later when he went in the game, all he wanted to do was be able to pitch to Shohei and to be able to strike him out. And it is the third strike is hilarious. It's a up. I don't want to call it a fastball.
61 mile an hour heater.
It was up in the zone, and Ohtani tried to hit it, and he just swung right through it. And I'm like, man, that would be
That is winning behavior.
Yep.
absolutely winning
Okay.
behavior.
Non-winning behavior with all the airport chaos we've had last few months.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if how breaking news this is, but there are 200 airport systems still in existence that use floppy disks.
What?
That's not winning behavior.
So it doesn't really give a lot of.
I wonder how many of our listeners don't even know what a floppy disk is.
I mean,
That's a good point. Google it.
customer
Young Crunk brothers.
customer confidence in the skies this year is plummeting as we speak. I guess
Hey,
I shouldn't use that. I shouldn't use
whoa.
that analogy. Non-winning behavior. The LA sportscaster, one of our brethren in LA, Ron Burgundy, came home and wow, his whole back patio door was destroyed. His house was ransacked. Like, did a bear get in here? Did a Sasquatch get in here? And he turned the corner. He looked in his master bedroom. Naked guy asleep in his bed.
Jeez.
So there was that story. It can always get worse. So we've had tough days as sports broadcasters around here. Not like that guy in L.A.
So is that winning behavior or non-winning behavior?
Not non-winning behavior.
Okay.
Obviously.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of, if you don't have a bear, if it's just a guy.
It just makes me think of, I can explain it to you guys off air, one of my favorite Family Feud answers ever of all time in an episode. But
All right.
I'll save the
Okay.
story.
Now I see this. The U.S. Navy, our military, lost another F-18.
Yeah.
Now that's number 2, right?
Yeah, that's number 2.
I mean, because I was saying these things happen in threes.
I
That wasn't the third
This was the number 2.
$70 million fighter jet to go.
We
kerplunk.
didn't get to it the last time, so I wanted to make sure we got to it because
Okay.
you had mentioned the first one.
Right.
They might find themselves to your list of incompetence.
That fell into the Red
Yes.
Sea.
Yeah.
This is the second one that fell into the
and Paul didn't
Red
believe
Sea.
the first time.
Yeah, I still don't
Conspiracy
believe it.
theorists.
Still don't believe it. Unfortunately, I think maybe the Houthis got a couple of them, and now they're just saying, oh, yeah, they fell off the side of the carrier and plunged into the Red Sea. There's something there. If you talk about trolling and doing a little spoof, there's something for game ops where they should use Red Sea, and like the fighter jet goes into the Red Sea.
Too bad we don't play New York this year.
Cardinals need to for the Jets. That's right. That's too bad. It would have been good last year.
One more
Right.
non-winning
Okay.
behavior. This dude who's suing the NFL because Shedeur Sanders fell in the draft.
Yeah, explain that, please.
Apparently, I don't know, he suffered some kind of mental distress because Shedeur Sanders dropped in the draft.
Mental or his parlay, because you can bet on where certain players go in the draft, and maybe
well.
he suffered financial
How much
distress.
money is he going to lose for
I don't
lawyer
gamble,
fees?
so I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
That's pretty lame.
Yeah, that is.
Although I did see that he's he's following through on it, and he's asking for all this discovery from the NFL of all these different things, and I'm like, it's just crazy.
Good luck with that. Good luck with actually getting. Okay.
And one last winning behavior,
Yep.
the Mac
Please.
Wilson schedule video, 18 bars. Check it out if you haven't. And if you haven't by now, it would be really surprising. But being a part of that whole thing was pretty cool. And he.
So you
Mac
saw
really kicked
you
ass.
saw a lot of the behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, I was around for a lot of it. Yes.
Okay. At any point did you use the word slap? Adrian Wilson looked at Mac Wilson Sr. and said, after listening to the song, and said that was slap.
My favorite part of the whole thing, and I enjoyed a lot of different ones. After they shot the video, parts of the video with some of the players, I pulled Isaiah Adams, the guard, aside, and I said, I just want to get your impression of what's going on. He was giving me a couple of quotes, and part of his quote was, I said, you like the song? He goes, oh yeah. He goes, it was a banger. That's what we call it, a banger. And I'm like, okay, I'm not that old. I'm like, come on.
Oh, so he made sure to differentiate between us and you, meaning we call it a banger.
I'm
and
assuming
you people
feeling
outside the
very
18
old.
to
I
34
don't
demo, you might not be aware
Isaiah's
of that.
a very good dude, but that was the quote that I remember. But yes.
Okay.
A lot of work went into that by a lot of people. It was
Yeah.
a heavy lift, but
Yeah.
it turned out very well.
I'll leave it with this, my last comment. Some of the best teams have been the closest teams, have really enjoyed each other's company. The fact that Budda Baker said just because they wanted to, the DBs went bowling the other day, and then some of the coaches showed up. The fact that, at least one of the things that really struck me after watching the video, 18 bars, was how much the teammates enjoyed it. And it was Mac Wilson, in the seats and guys messing around and the interaction with guys. And look, does that translate directly into wins and losses? You'll never be able to prove that, but I will say this. If you don't have some of that team camaraderie and that chemistry and guys don't like being around each other, you better be really good. Like, you might have all pros and pro bowlers in the latter stages of their careers if you want to be a winning team.
It also translates to accountability out on the field and in the locker room, and holding high standards for yourself and for those around you, and for listening when somebody is going to call you out on something. That's what that translates to, is you're no longer just a bunch of talented individuals. You are a talented group playing for each other. And that's a very physical game. So if you're going to go out there and put your body on the line every single play, you want to go out there and play with and for people next to you that are doing the same, that you trust and that you like, that you have that connection with. Absolutely, that can translate into the performance and the overall camaraderie and connection of a team.
I found it interesting. Budda Baker offered up to the media this week that one of the areas where he's evolved the most as a player, especially as a veteran, is being forgiving of teammates when they mess it up. He's such a perfectionist. He's so good at his craft. Somebody blows something, whether it's an assignment or an adjustment, and he used to get really irritated, really frustrated with teammates. Sounds like, at least the way he tells it, he's in a much better place in trying to correct and,
Two things on that. One, that comes with maturity. I feel like I've gotten in a better place. I am a lot older.
Yeah, you don't yell at me as much.
That just hurts. That hurts right here. The other thing I thought of was, like, when Budda made mention that he's still in his 20s.
yeah, that is
Like, that's troubling, because I'm not.
how close is he to 30? I forgot to look that up, by the way.
I think he turns 30 this year. Sometime,
So
right?
he's flexing that for another few months. Or
I would,
something?
wouldn't
Okay.
you?
Well, sure, but I'm just
Dani's still
wondering.
talking about how she's still in her 20s.
Well, January 10th is his birthday.
Oh, okay. So he just turned 29.
Yes.
Okay.
He just turned 29.
It took me a long time to say the words 30.
I don't even remember being 30 anymore.
I went with 29 years and 17 months, something like that.
Oh, like when you got a kid. How old's your kid?
That's right.
72 months.
Right,
Wait,
yeah.
isn't that like
Yeah.
5 years old?
Yeah.
Don't ask me. I'm not doing the math.
That is a good reminder. No math. And we do stand by that here on Cardinals Underground, brought to you by Pacific Office Automation.